All right. Good morning and happy Thursday, everyone. I hope everyone has had a wonderful week so far and enjoyed your weekend last weekend. So, today with us, we have Priscilla Skinner. She is the Work Opportunity Tax Credit State Coordinator with the Virginia Works team. And she's going to be talking to us a little bit more today about the Work Opportunity Tax Credit Program. So, if you don't mind, if you do have any questions, you're more than welcome to drop them in the chat as we go. Raise your hand. We are more than happy to have this be an interactive call today, so please feel free to chime in if you have any questions. And I will go ahead and hand it over to Priscilla to kick it off from here.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kayla. Good morning, everyone. As Kayla mentioned, I am the Work Opportunity Tax Credit Program Manager or State Coordinator for the entire state of Virginia. I want to say thank you all for joining me. As I just give you a high-level overview of what I consider the what, the who, and the how of the program. And again, as Kayla mentioned, I'd like for this to be an interactive session. So as I'm going through my slide deck, if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me and ask your questions. I'm happy to answer them as they present themselves. So the what of the program. So WOTC is a federal tax incentive program that's available to employers that hire difficult to hire job seekers. There's about 10 WOTC categories for the program. Also, the program is available to, as I mentioned, it's available to for-profit employers or employers who pay federal taxes. But it's also, and those employers that pay federal taxes are able to hire from the 10 WOTC categories. Now, if the employer is a nonprofit, then the participation for the nonprofit employers is limited to hiring or participating in the WOTC program by hiring from the veterans category, and their tax credit will be applied to their share of their Social Security liability. Now, the WOTC program, it's a permanent program that is overseen by the federal government. And the federal government is the authority that authorizes our program. And at this point in time, the program is authorized through December 31st of 2025. So that's a really good thing. What I want to talk about just a little bit, and that is if Congress or the federal government does not reauthorize the program by the end of December 31st of 2025, the program will not go away. It just means that it will go into what we consider a hiatus status until the feds decide to reauthorize the program again. And that's important to know because if the program does go into hiatus after December 31st of 2025, I would want to make sure that employers understand, do not discontinue submitting WOTC applications. Please continue submitting your WOTC applications. What happens is they'll come to my team, we'll process the applications, but we won't be able to release the determinations until the feds actually reauthorizes the program. That's important to know that. So if the program actually does go into what we call a hiatus, employers should still continue to submit their applications. My team will continue to process, but we won't be able to release the determinations until the program becomes reauthorized again by the feds. So here is a list of all of the WOTC categories. And as you can see, the max tax credit amounts for the majority of the tax for the majority of the categories is $2,400. And of course, you'll see there are some exceptions. What I want you to know is the majority of the categories do not require supporting documentation. So that means once the application is submitted to my office, my team is able to determine eligibility based on the information that we have in-house. And also important to know, each of the categories does have eligibility criteria. And again, my team will evaluate that eligibility criteria and determine whether that new hire is eligible for the category based on the information that we have in-house. Now, if a category or an application is submitted for a category that requires supporting documentation, and that supporting documentation is not available at the time that the application is submitted, very important to know that employers should still submit the application without the supporting documentation, because the employer can submit that supporting documentation at a later time. It's important to get the application to us timely. The Department of Labor and the IRS, those are the two agencies that oversee our program. They have a strict guideline that indicates the application has to be submitted no more than 28 days after that new hire starts to work for the employer. So that's what's most important, getting the application to us timely. And again, if there is supporting documentation that's required, get that supporting docs to us at a later time. Just get the application to us timely. Now, who is eligible? Pretty simple. And it's just mainly a job seeker who has never worked for an employer before. There's some guidelines regarding job seekers who will not qualify. And that is a job seeker who is a former employer, a former employee. And the guideline from the Department of Labor and the IRS is, even if that employee has worked for the employer like some time ago, a long time ago, years ago, it doesn't matter. If that job seeker had left the company and decided to come back, and the employer is now ready to rehire that person, then unfortunately that new hire, or that rehire in this case, would not be eligible for the WOTC program, even if the employer did not know about the program when that job seeker first started to work for that employer some time ago. Then there's also relatives and dependents of the employer. These are the criteria that unfortunately will not qualify for the program. Okay, talking about how to apply. So there's two forms. There's a form 8850 and a form 9061. Form 8850 is what is generated by the IRS, and it's called the pre-screening notice. And the best way to manage that form is during the application process. I think it's important to have the employer provide that form 8850 to the job seeker so that they can complete it, because again, it is a pre-screening notice. It determines whether that job seeker or the potential new hire may qualify for the program. So the job seeker is going to fill out page 1 of form 8850, again, during the application process. And if the job seeker is actually hired and they answer yes to one or more of those questions, then during the onboarding process, then the employer is going to complete page 2 of form 8850, as well as their portion of form 9061, and the new hire is going to complete their portion of form 9061. So together, form 8850 and form 9061 becomes a full WOTC application. So the job seeker completes page 1 of form 8850, and if hired, then the job seeker answers yes to one or more of those questions on form 8850, the employer completes page 2 of form 8850, and then both the new hire completes their portion of form 9061, and the employer completes their portion of form 9061. some additional information about the how to apply. As I mentioned, there's a Form 8850 and 9061. Those two forms have to be submitted. The preferred way that we would prefer to receive our applications is via the online system. It's an easy way to get the applications to us. That'll save the employer some postage. It's an electronic system. So what happens is there's a feature within the online system. It's called application entry. And basically the employer will data enter the details of Form 8850 and Form 9061 directly into our system. That allows the application to become electronic on my end, and the employer will hold on to the 8850 and the 9061 on their end. There will be no need for them to mail the form to us. Important to know, this is incredibly important, is once that new hire starts to work for the employer, that employer has 28 days to get the application either in the mail or postmarked or in our system, no more than 28 days after that new hire starts to work. If the employer decides to utilize our online system, then they'll have access to check status of the application. They'll be able to determine, where the application is in the process. They'll see a new status, a certified status, a denied status. There's an out-of-state status, an SSI/TTW status, a verified status, and there's a couple of other statuses. So the new status indicates that the application is waiting to be assigned. Certification or certificate status, that indicates the application has been processed, and there'll be a certificate link for the employer to click, and they will be able to print their determination. A denied status will also show a link for the employer to click, and they are able to print the denied determination. Something that's important to understand and know about the denied status. A denied status could be a final denial or a final determination, meaning that my team has gone through and determined that based on the eligibility criteria, the person does not qualify. It could also mean that we are requesting some additional information or supporting documentation so that we can evaluate that application for verification. The OOS or out-of-state status, that means that somewhere on the application, either the new hire has indicated that they live in another state or that they received benefits in another state. And if that's the case, we have to send the application to the other state, my counterpart in another state, to receive verification to determine whether that new hire meets the eligibility criteria. Sometimes the out-of-state category will delay the certification process, and the time frame varies depending on the state. The SSI or TTW or Social Security Income or Ticket to Work category, that's verified also by one of our partners. There's an agency called Cognosante, and they have been tasked to verify the SSI and the TTW category for us. We have pretty good turnaround time with receiving responses from that agency, so there should be minimal delay if we need to send a request to the Cognosante partner for verification. The verify status is used, but I don't use it that often anymore. The verify status was used as a training tool for me if I've hired someone new on my team and I want to ensure that the person is actually understanding the process and determining the applications correctly. An application may go into a verified status for a short time, and then a determination will be made based on review of how well that person or my new hire is doing. But again, the verify status is not utilized that often anymore. So my team is pretty well versed, and I don't have anyone who is new on my team at this point. So like I said, you probably won't see the verify status as often. If the I think, as I mentioned, if the employer is utilizing our online system, the certificates and denials are going to be able to be printed directly from the online system. And also something important to note, if you're utilizing our online system, and I guess this is kind of obvious, but if you're using the online system, you'll be responsible, the employer will be responsible for printing their determinations. We won't, mail the determinations to an employer who has an online account. If the employer has utilized the postal service to submit their WOTC applications to us, then we will mail a determination back to them, whether it's a certification or a denial. Those will be sent back via the mail. Now, once an employer, once you receive a certificate from us, meaning that we reviewed the application and determined that the person is, or your new hire is eligible for the category that's been submitted, then what the employer will need to do on their end is retain that employee for a minimum of 120 hours for that employer to take the minimum tax credit. Most employers, of course, is going to want to take the max tax credit. So they'll want to retain that new hire for a minimum of 400 hours. And at tax time, then the employer will they'll file Form 5884 or a 5884C if it's a nonprofit employer that's wanting to take a tax credit. Just a little bit more information about the how to apply. So I have two examples. One example of a certificate and the details of what you'll see on that certification. What's most important is that you'll see the target group that the application was certified for, plus some additional information at the bottom of the certificate talking about, what the employer needs to do to file that tax, the tax file for the tax credit. Something that I didn't mention, which I think deserves mentioning. I mentioned, I think earlier on in the presentation, that if the job seeker at the time answers yes to one or more of those questions on Form 8850 and they're hired, then one or more categories are going to be submitted to my office for verification. And what my team knows to do, they will try to certify the application for the category that is going to get the employer the highest tax credit amount. So for example, just an example, if the application is submitted for Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, or SNAP, the tax credit amount for the max tax credit amount for that category is $2,400. But then there's also a long-term a TANF category, and those two categories pretty much go hand in hand to some extent. And the long-term TANF category nets the employer a max tax credit of $9,000. And so what my team will do is ensure that we try to verify and certify the application for the higher tax credit if we can. So if the applicant is eligible for the SNAP category and the long-term TANF category, then we're going to certify the application for the long-term TANF category. If the new hire is only eligible for the SNAP category, then unfortunately that's the category that we will certify the application for, even if both are submitted. And then you have an example of what a denial looks like. So again, a denial could be a final denial. And so in the reason denied section of the document, if it's a final denial, the wording will be something to the effect that the person does not qualify for any of the categories. But if it's a denial where we're asking for some additional information, the statement is going to read what you see. Please upload XYZ information that we would require to verify the category submitted. And then you'll also have a recap of the categories that were submitted on the application. So again, a denial could be a final denial, or it could be a request for some additional information. That additional information can be submitted via mail if the employer utilized the postal service, but if the employer utilized our online system, there is a feature in our system called supplemental document upload, and that supporting documentation can actually be uploaded using that feature. And what happens is the person that submitted the request, once the document is uploaded, they'll receive an email letting them know that the information that they requested is now available, and that'll make them go to the application, review the application, and hopefully they have the information that they need to now finalize the application that was pertaining to their request. So as a general recap, so what an employer would do is hire from one of the 10 WOTC categories if they are a federal tax federal tax paying employer. If it's a nonprofit employer that's utilizing the program, they'll hire from the veterans category. The job seeker is going to complete Form 8850 before the job offer is made, meaning they are going to complete that Form 8850 during the application process. And if the job seeker has completed Form 8850 and they've answered yes to one or more of those questions, and the employer actually hires them, so during the onboarding process, the new hire is going to complete Form 9061. The new hire and the employer is going to complete their portions of Form 9061, and the employer is going to complete page 2 of Form 8850, and together that's going to generate a WOTC application. Form 8850 and 9061 is going to be submitted no more than 28 days after that new hire starts to work. So if the employer is going to utilize the postal service, then the application has to be postmarked no more than 28 days after the new hire starts to work. If the employer is going to utilize our online system, it has to be entered no more than 28 days after the new hire starts to work. And again, if the employer is utilizing our online system, they can check the status of the application and print their determinations. Once the application is certified, the employer retains the new hire for the appropriate time frame to take the tax credit. Either it's going to be 120 hours or 400 hours. And then at tax time, the employer completes Form 5884 or 5884C to calculate the tax credit amount per new hire. And I think it's important to note that there is no maximum amount of tax credits that an employer can take. So for each new hire who has never worked for that employer before, who has completed Form 8850 and they've answered yes, and they're hired, that employer can submit as many WOTC applications as they desire for review and for consideration of a tax credit. One thing that I do want to mention, employers have the opportunity to submit WOTC applications on their own, but we do have employers that hire what we call third-party representatives who submit the WOTC applications on their behalf. And I don't know if any of you as employers are utilizing the program and are utilizing employer representatives that submit the WOTC applications for you. But I just wanted to just mention that as well. Anything that I can clarify, any questions, I'm happy to answer.
So Priscilla, if they did after this, obviously during the follow-up and recap email, I will send them some resources that you sent over to me. But if they did have any follow-up questions outside of emailing you, where is the best place to look for some more information, some more details of the things that you went over in your slides?
So the documentation that I sent you, I believe, has everything that they would need to answer any questions. But also there's always the Department of Labor's website for WOTC is another resource that they can go to. And then,
Great.
of course, sending me an email. I can answer any questions as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Anybody have any questions for us? We all set? I'm going to take the silence as a no, and I will go ahead and let everyone get back to the rest of your day. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. I do want to thank Ms. Priscilla Skinner for joining us today and going over the Work Opportunity Tax Credit Program. As I mentioned, you will all receive a recap email with some great information from her slide deck, some other resources as well. And you'll be able to review that a little bit more in depth. And as we mentioned, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Ms. Skinner or myself if you need any connections. And other than that, I think we are all set. Thank you, Priscilla, for joining us. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Take good care.
Take care.
Yeah, bye-bye.